Have you encountered ageism?
I was always viewed as, well, you're not old enough to make decisions like that.
How is that dynamic between the US and you guys?
There was this barrier. New York was not influencing Toronto. New York was not influencing Montreal. But on the other side of the country,
Cheers.
cheers. I'm like so many drinks to choose from. What do we drink first?
You tell me, what are we drinking here?
We're drinking Patron Añejo Old Fashioned with a dash each of Bitter Sling Plum and Root Beer and Bitter Sling Malagasy Chocolate Bitters from Canada.
And this is not accidentally here because this is your company with
yes,
your...
Yes, it's true, it's true.
With your partner.
Yeah, with Jonathan, Chef Jonathan.
Another episode of Bar Talks. We are in New Orleans for Tales of the Cocktail. This one sponsored by 3 Cents, but also with creative control of everything else. And so Paloma's with Patron because we can. Well, the reason I'm lucky enough to be here is because of Mob of Mentors, which was the seminar we did yesterday at Tales of the Cocktail. The most ambitious seminar I think I've ever seen, the most stressful one I think I've ever seen.
For everyone.
For everyone. No, I meant like for everyone involved. The one I got a special okay from Tales. Tell us more. Where, how, what, why?
The most important thing about what we did yesterday at Tales with Mob of Mentors is that it highlighted that winning an award does not make you the captain of the ship. It means that you have a duty to provide opportunities for other people. And I think if you only look at it as, I can't believe I won this award, thank goodness someone recognized me, and then moving on, it is the duty of the people that receive the recognition to pay it forward to the folks that are still waiting for the spotlight. And the spotlight should not be the thing that defines why you do something. And so I felt, and we were talking about this earlier today, to be recognized on a short list, if it's a top 10, a top 4, you win the damn thing, or you're standing in a stadium of 50,000 people and they call, 100 names and everyone, they stay standing up and everyone else sits down, that the odds are still precious that you would be included in that group and that vibe. So Mob of Mentors represents exactly what we should be doing, and it is highlighting the amazing passion and dedication and selflessness that people provide for other people. And we did that in a very robust and intense format. And I think it will just keep carrying on. Every, I say instructor, because it wasn't a presenter. Every instructor had 6 minutes and 40 seconds to inspire the world on their particular brand of mentorship that makes them special. And I think
no control over the process either.
Everyone did that, and it was extraordinary.
And for those that haven't seen the posts, Pecha Kucha. 6 minutes, 40 seconds, 20 slides, no control. You say go, you gotta go, right?
Yeah.
And you had to open the whole thing.
I was the only one that had done it. So it was my own. It was my own fault. I pitched this. I convinced everybody that we would be able to do this. From a tech point of view, I had the timers. I had everything. You need someone that has serious. I mean, maybe I do have OCD. I'm not entirely sure, but you need someone who is like rigid in process in order to put something like this together, because it was a beast and we were planning it for 6 months, as you know. But I think equally, as challenging as it was to build from a tech point of view, it was equally challenging to find the right speakers to launch the first one, to get everyone to pick a very different topic so it wasn't 11 presentations of exactly the same thing.
Which is scary. That's a lot of overlap when you have mentorship as the theme.
Getting everyone's slides and making sure that the pictures told the story, getting everyone to practice how they would be able to release their narrative, and also the key takeaways. And for you, like even being so gracious to post on social media about it, I think it's something that's been around for 20 years. I was lucky enough to participate in 2. The first one was in a bar, and it was in 2007. And it was only bartenders sharing about their experience of becoming a bartender. So it was 100 people max.
I think that's cool
drinks.
as well.
It's great. The second one I did was 5,000 people.
Jesus.
And it was in former Mayor of Vancouver, Sam Sullivan, his public salon, and he wanted to bring extraordinary Vancouverites together to share what makes living in the city special, and mine was about hospitality and cocktail culture.
That's great.
And that was, you blank completely. I mean, you can't even, there's lights and you're like, there are 5,000 people staring at me right now, and I can't see any of them, and I can't really see the timer either, and I'm having an out-of-body experience.
You're seeing the back of your head being...
So I had to go first. And there's a calamity of things that happened where everything was so perfect up to the moment, and then 2 presenters said, my slides were wrong, or my notes were missing, and so the 30 minutes leading up to the start where I should have been like prepping for my own presentation, I was doing tech stuff, and then all of a sudden everyone was here and they're like, are you ready? No.
Wow.
And then you just have to go for it.
And you've got this crazy life journey. I try to do a lot of reading. I don't always do, but because your life story is so great, from what I read in your interview at Difford's, was when you were a waitress at this particular place in Canada, and how you moved up and how you met your husband. We can only see the world through our own eyes. I don't think I'm getting any older. If you know what I mean, like I feel like I'm the same person. Everything else seems to be getting older.
Yeah.
But I'm still the young person in my head, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, have you encountered ageism or in the industry? Have you seen it?
Yeah, and I think as a woman as well, it's very interesting because I grew up in the generation of seeking out mentorship. But for me, because I grew up in a family with very, very strong female role models, my mom, both of my grandmothers, they were all entrepreneurs. They were always like incredibly strong characters. I never felt outrightly victimized by lack of support for women in the industry necessarily, until it was pointed out to me and they said, that's what that is. And I'm like, really? For me, it was always attributed to ageism. I was never old enough or experienced enough to be put in the, I knew that I was old enough and experienced enough and knew what I was doing. But outside looking in, the folks that worked for me, the folks that worked with me, even though I was incredibly like adaptable and accommodating, but like firm and learning and whatever it might have been for the business that I was running, I was always viewed as, well, you're not old enough to make decisions like that. You are not experienced enough to make decisions like that.
Are we getting better?
I would say yes, because ageism is being called out now.
Right.
So rather than the first thing that someone says is, oh, were you far too young to know this much? And it's like, how do you know? I use great cosmetics. Maybe I just look really young. But I assure you that mentorship and understanding and experience is not based on age. It is based literally on exactly that. It's based on lived experience.
So, loaded question time. Tell me about Canada. Never been. Apparently it's not so simple. Lots of different states. You can't do a lot of things apparently in some states, and others you can. How was it? Tell me everything. Canada
is an amazing place to grow up. It's we're very privileged to be able to hold a Canadian passport and citizenship. It's been influenced equally by what happens in the U.S. from a geopolitical perspective, from an economical perspective, as much as it is influenced by Europe.
Oh yeah.
So oftentimes when Canadians introduce themselves, it's, I'm Lauren from Canada, and my parents are from, Eastern Europe and the UK. And often, like, Canadians will overshare in that way because they are newly minted Canadians. Because oftentimes, like Canada, we need to really appreciate the fact that it's only been since 1867. There's a lot of...
Canada's that young?
It's very, very young.
Oh, wow.
Even though, like, the first settlers landed, there was like wars in the 1700s. Like Quebec City had like this viewpoint from the Citadel in Quebec, looking down the St. Lawrence River, waiting for the English that were incoming to attack. Like, these are the kinds of things that we learn in school. And it's interesting because we still had to wait another 104 years until there was confederation for the country, but it was only like 4 provinces or something.
So dear European viewers who always make fun out of Americans because they don't know European history, this is we never get taught this in school. No idea.
No,
equally
not
as
at all.
ignorant on our side of the pond. What's the scene like there? How is that dynamic between the U.S. and you guys?
So when I started bartending in 1999, 2000, it was beer, wine, You know, the cocktails that we were doing were based on like layered drinks that people were very proud to show you. They're like, let me show you my layered, cherry brandy float thing, and then they would
cafes for everyone.
Yeah, but the cocktail scene in Canada, again, I mentioned that chefs were like the original celebrities of the industry, but because of our close proximity to the U.S., you thought that there would be an influence more in drinks culture than we had, but there was this barrier. New York was not influencing Toronto. New York was not influencing Montreal, but on the other side of the country, Seattle was influencing Vancouver, and Seattle was being influenced by San Francisco and by like the West Coast. And so actually, what came up first in Canada was the West Coast. It was
all the way around.
It was California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and then it came across. So we hosted the Olympic Games in 2010. And so I moved to Vancouver from Toronto in 2007 because I had this amazing experience in Toronto, but I only wanted to work for one chef at one restaurant in Canada because my perspective at the time was, this is the only place to be. British Columbia is where things are happening, and Toronto and Montreal still needs more time. So I went out there. I worked for a restaurant called Lumiere, which was owned by the original celebrity chef in Canada, Chef Rob Feeney.
Right. Okay.
He competed on the original Iron Chef.
No,
like the
love
original Iron Chef. He was filmed on Julia Child's 90th birthday face-to-camera celebration of the best chefs in the world. It was like Charlie Trotter, happy birthday, Julia. Rob Feeney from Canada, happy birthday, Julia.
That's awesome.
What? Like, this guy was so famous, and
this
he
is the
owned
person
this
you wanted to work
restaurant
for.
in Canada. I only wanted to work at his restaurant and for him, and I manifested. I called someone I knew in Toronto in 2007, and I said, do you know anybody that works at Lumiere, just so at least I could have a meeting? And he says, I went to wine school with somebody, and I think he works somewhere in Vancouver. I'll connect you. I said, that would be great. I got a call from this guy. I'm the wine director and general manager of Lumiere. Like, hello, stars aligning. I ended up getting hired as the bar manager at Lumiere. So I arrived in Vancouver in 2007 in exactly the place that I wanted to be, working for the guy I wanted to work for, and it was amazing. And the way that we were developing cocktails was in partnership with the chefs. The chefs were so involved. They're like, we got these amazing elderflowers that were just pulled in garbage bags through the back door from this farmer with no shoes on. Do you want to use them for drinks? Because we're putting them in tonight's
It's crazy to think
features.
that you were doing that way back then, and now people are running entire bar programs around this concept, even though, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's not about who did it first or did it well, it's about who shouts the loudest.
For sure. And
sounds like you were way ahead of the curve.
It was, I think there are moments where you have to work, of course, incredibly hard and put the work in and the research, be well read, understood, and learned before you can like jump into things. But there is like some serious like stars aligning, like writing your destiny, and things just kind of work out the way they do. And there was something about like Alice Waters in California leading that farm to table movement in California, and Thomas Keller with French Laundry, and there was something happening on the West Coast that translated up into Canada, into Vancouver, Whistler, Victoria, like all of British Columbia, and it was infecting every single person that worked in the industry in Vancouver, and it didn't exist anywhere else in Canada at the time.
But how do we compare your experience in north of the States, North America, to now moving over to Europe? What do you think about the scenes? What do you think about the bar communities?
So the reason why Jonathan and I left Canada is because we got to the top of what we could do. We talked about early stages in the bartending and the cooking industry and how that sort of infiltrated Canada, US. And then all of a sudden after the Olympics, Vancouver was on the map, everyone talked about it, and then that type of character started to travel across Canada. And it was a small group of bartenders that existed also in Toronto and Montreal at the time that were raising things on that side, and then we were raising things in Vancouver, and it finally met. All of a sudden, Canadian cocktail culture today, now 15 years later, 16 years later, you've got 50 Best North America, you've got serious infiltration of Canadian talent on all these lists, bartenders, venues, incredible. for Jonathan and I, we opened a bitters company and then we opened a marketing agency. He's still cooking. I'm working for global brands. We wanted to see what was next in our adventure. We moved to a place that was exactly like Vancouver in a different continent.
That's cool.
Amsterdam is very well known for a lot of things. They're well known for Jenever. They're well known for beer, for this 500-year-old culture, for this sort of like emancipated feeling of you can be and do as you like in Amsterdam and you're safe and we'll champion you for it. But it's not terribly well known or well documented for good food and beverage options. It's just very standard, which means there is an opportunity for the community there to write exactly what they want their history to be in Amsterdam and what they want Netherlands culture to be known for in terms of food and drink. And you've got incredible people at the helm of that. So we wanted to move and also be part of something special. And even though we contribute on a different level now, it is helping to raise, I suppose, the profile of European countries outside of the UK.
Yeah.
Because the UK is often known as this is the epicenter of everything, and they would be right to say so. London and New York and like Tokyo and a bunch of other places are helping to move like industry at large from a macro level. But on a micro level, there are little pockets of different things, Barcelona, Paris, like there's all these incredible countries and cities that are doing things differently that help to establish themselves as part of the mosaic rather than the melting pot of the EU.
Okay. It seems like you've gone step by step very like confidently, you know exactly where you want to go, you know exactly what you want to do, and you really push for it. Has your approach to that changed over the years? How do you choose your next goals?
I don't know exactly where this type of trait comes from in me, and it might be because I have witnessed not to make assumptions about anyone's situation, but I come from a family of a single mother of 3 kids, and also we grew up like very poor, and my dad wasn't around, and so I think every decision that my mom made and every decision and how it affected us was really visceral and really real. So we felt the impact of the decision being made, and we also felt the pressure of the decisions she would have to make in order to, I don't know, make sure we had food on the table or make sure that we had clothes or make sure that we were in school. So I think, and that's probably where it comes from, because every decision that I've made, I've almost done this like choose your own adventure thing. Before I make the decision, before I commit, I go through this process of every possible outcome and I make my decision based on that. And so I might not know what the end destination is, and I don't think any of us do, and that's sort of the fun of life, but I do have an anticipation of what the next 3 steps could look like depending on which
it's always
which
there
path
somewhere.
I make. And so when I'm in the moment, I am engaged. So if I'm running a bar, if I'm training brand ambassadors, whatever I'm doing at whatever stage of my career, I have been very present and really committed to completing that task based on the series of objectives I've outlined. But it's always been my goal to have the mastery and the ability to manage myself out of the position.
That's cool.
That to me is the success for me, and that's my personality type. I need to manage myself out of this position. I have completed this task perfectly, and I've set the next person up to take over, and now I need to go to what's next. And what's next for me, again, could be 3 different options, and I have to assess which one makes the most sense, because they won't necessarily all be presented for me. I have to go out and figure them out.
Perfectionist is coming up. You're going to start doing these online Q&A sessions on the 15th of August, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So sign up early. What can you tell us? What?
I can actually share a lot.
For sure. Then share the fuck away.
Yeah. So when I joined Patron a year and a half ago, Perfectionist was a singular cocktail contest, similarly to what a lot of brands are doing as a way of engaging with bartenders and accounts, and it's lovely, and it's a really nice way to celebrate a brand. So with Perfectionist, we had a real opportunity when I came on board a year and a half ago to look at the program and say, well, what is the red tape in Patron? Spoiler alert, there isn't any. No red tape, we can do anything. what do we really want to do if we're in the right time and place to do something exceptionally extraordinary for bartenders? What are we going to do? And we created an incredible educational suite. We readapted the program to be contest rooted in contest programming, of course, but then also a 365-day program where bartenders could learn, could make drinks with a favorite spirit category, with one of their favorite brands, additive-free, beautiful tequila, and have chances to celebrate and learn more about Mexican culture, which all of us feel really connected to. Bartenders and the food of Mexico and palenques and mezcal and tequila. I mean, find me a bartender that is not into that. So with Perfectionist, it took, it's on a 3-year transition program right now. So
this is year one?
This is year 2.
Year 2.
So year 1 was single cocktail contest transform into larger program. Multiple challenges, multiple educational opportunities for bartenders, and then a really incredible global final where we had incredible judges, mentors in the industry, and bartenders from around the world participating, and it was life-changing. Year 2 that we're in right now is all about taking all the learnings from year 1 and now rooting it into Mexican culture in a big way. We have a program called Mixología de Mexico, which is celebrating the iconic cocktails and people of Mexico, and that's been now folded in to Perfectionist. And then Academia Patron, which is our digital advocacy hub, has now been folded into Perfectionist. So we now offer the biggest possible agave category education program in the world on Patron, which is open and free to all bartenders with a working internet connection. We have brand ambassadors all over the world, and anyone can enter Perfectionist and take our education. From the contest point of view, it's take one of your favorite drinks. You keep the tequila the same, Patron Reposado. You keep the soda water, so like in this case, you could use grapefruit soda or you could use regular soda water. But whatever you make in terms of the cordial, as long as grapefruit plays a role, you can do anything you want from a wide range of creativity and the spirit of the drink itself. And then from there, mentorship, and you're part of our mentorship program now, which is pretty amazing.
Also,
which is great. And so after September 30th, when the entry challenge closes, so we're working on the Margarita, Patron Silver Margarita adaptation for the US only from July 1 until September 30th. And then everywhere else in the world, we are working on the Patron Reposado Paloma.
Perfect.
From there, we will have a wide range of live workshops where bartenders can touch, taste, feel, develop. So it's not sitting in a room staring at a screen while someone is teaching you. You are learning by tasting, touching, feeling. That is the most important thing, because that's how you really put things into action.
Perfect.
And then providing these great opportunities for bartenders to just meet more people like themselves, and to allow Patron to bring that to life for them in an annual program.
Do you still keep all the previous competitors and/or champions in play in some form?
Everyone is involved unless they work for another brand or they've pulled themselves out because they don't have the time, maybe they're an operator or something else. But all of our global winners are still involved. Lots of our national winners from the last couple of years are involved. It's important that it's not just global winners that get a seat at the table, but in fact we have a giant table and we've got a lot of people sitting there. And we're bringing in new chairs all the time.
It's really nice to hear that, because I always thought that sometimes there's a missed opportunity to keep those people in the loop and keep them as part of the team, because okay, you're a champion, but you've got 12 months, your clock starts now, and that's it. So that's really, really nice to hear. I think we wrap it up.
Sure.
Because I think that we both need to go, and something just died.
And something just died.
That was it.
It's like, and.
We both need to. There you go.